Go ahead, Derek. It's starting. There we go.
Perfect. So just to give the real quick recap, we've built this presentation, making sure that we can keep kids safe, happy, and healthy as they move into being adults. We do have the two organizations that we referenced when looking at this material. It's both Common Sense Media and healthychildren.org. Both organizations are very well vetted, and they have a wealth of resources that you can access outside of this presentation, and we'd encourage you to do so. Common Sense Media in particular has a number of resources for parents and help you to make appropriate media choices with your children. It gives plenty of resources on how to access that. So this first question that we have here is, how do we use media in balance as a family? Find this quality content, set expectations around healthy use, prevent conflict, and raise media savvy consumers and creators. Really using this as a guiding question, we're trying to see how we can make sure that our students are ready to go as they move into adulthood. So when you're having some conversations with your child about how they are using their technology device, some things that we want to make sure that you're taking into account is how they can find this balance. And I think with remote learning, it was probably the most challenging bit as you're going through the day, is that they still wanted to engage with their friends. And the way that they were doing that is online, and they had spent the whole day online on their device. When we're looking at content, we're looking at media and its consumption, it's not all equal. So if the child is engaging with different types of media and they're doing some content creation or they're interacting with friends, that's different than if they're consuming and they're just watching something on Netflix. And so we, first of all, need to designate what kind of media is being used and really helping them to make sure that they're maximizing the amount of time on that types of media that allows them to be creative, allows them to expand their horizons. Another thing, when we're thinking about how we can make sure that our child is really balancing and finding a healthy balance, would be around making sure that when you ask them to do something, maybe follow the same way. They do. Your children, they look up to you as a role model. I know in middle school it might not seem like that all the time, but they really want to see you as what you're asking them to do. Another thing, and it's important more so now than ever, as they're starting to find a lot of when they're starting to hang out more with their friends than they want to hang out with you, is to continue to have those conversations as much as possible. In elementary school, you can remember when they would come home and they would tell you all the things. And I don't know, maybe you're experiencing the same as me, but maybe you're getting a little less out of them in middle school. So if you can engage them in conversations, engage your child and hear what they're talking about. If they're on a service, you might ask them what they're up to on it. So if they're chatting like on Google Chat, or they're on maybe Discord, I think that you need to go and talk to them and hear what they're saying. And I think both Common Sense Media and what we're reading in a lot of places are suggesting that that relationship that you have with your child is important, and you need to make sure to continue to nourish that as much as possible. This fourth thing, where it's creating tech-free zones, a lot of the recommendations from the healthychildren.org as well as Common Sense Media is to keep technology out of the bedrooms. If they have a desk space in there, that's understandable. Here at our house, we have a charging cabinet that is in the living room where all devices live. Having that space where they have focused time to be able to disengage from technology, it's an important thing. And then finally, this is from Common Sense Media, so they want you to check the ratings of media before consumption. So if they're going to watch a movie, maybe see that it's okay for a preteen, early teenager. Cool. Danya, did you want to pick up from these next couple slides?
Sure. Okay, so for the Declaration of Independence, sorry, my computer. So at the age of 8, we know that kids want a little bit more independence. And so it is time for them to develop their own relationship with tech and media. And at that age, they want to play things like Minecraft and Roblox and Animal Jam and, some of the maybe games that if they have older siblings, that their older siblings play. So that's why we like to refer to Common Sense Media and check the ratings for those as well. So we know that age of 8, kids want a little bit more independence. And that also involves chatting with others online, and that can pose some risks, though really extreme cases. We always like to look at it in, as a parent, look at the big picture and make sure that we are protecting our kids. And so we're just giving you as parents tips for students, throughout middle school, obviously. And we'll look at also as they get older. So more often, other kids aren't kind of, maybe they're the students with that they're interacting with online may not always be kind or use kind language. And so we also have to talk to them about that as well, especially from the age of 8 and as they get older. And so just to be aware of things like that might harm, the students as well. Sorry, I lost my tab. Oh, there we go. So what's, at this point, we're thinking of our tween and, like Derek said earlier, they might come home and they may not share as much as they did in the past. So, what was, most important to you as a tween? So there are 5 different options. So go ahead in the chat if you feel that you would like to contribute to that. Pick one and post it in the chat. Okay, E, all of the above. Nice. Right, so, it could be, all of these could be, for me, when I was that age, I think A, sadly to say, I think friends was the most important thing at that age. And I know that, the struggle is real. We struggled as parents. I know my own parents struggled, to get through to us. And when I was a tween, I did not have my own cell phone. I did not have my own computer. But still, we know that connection is very important. Okay, Derek, do you want to take this slide?
Sure enough. So this is, they did a survey back in 2014. So as relevant as that is 7 years on, what was said in there in the qualitative sense is that a lot of times our teenagers are, I'm scared to say teenagers, but tweens and teenagers, I guess the 8th graders are teenagers at that point, that they're not necessarily addicted to technology, is that they want to be able to connect to their friends. And the easiest way to do that, they can't always be out running the town. Maybe that's in high school. I wouldn't know quite yet, but I think that being able to connect online, they want to foster those relationships. When they share jokes with their friends, it helps them to better fit in. They've been with their family for 12 or 13 years, and they're ready to branch out. They've seen how fun it is to have their peers around them, and so we want to be able to help support them. And so I think earlier I had mentioned that really these middle school years heading into high school, it's a not very long time before they're walking across the stage in Jaresh with their diploma and they're heading off into the world. We want to make sure that they've developed habits and they are prepared to be able to be out on their own. And we want the technology to be able to be used to connect in positive ways. And so as a parent and as a school, we want to be able to support our students in that gradual release as they move into adulthood. And we want to make sure that they have the resources and they have the support needed to be able to be ready to go. We had to change that picture like 3 or 4 times. We ended up with that one with the training wheels. So there's 3 C's that we are encouraging you to do, is that you can help your child choose. And so when they're looking at a game or a platform to work on, When I say platform, if they're choosing to chat, if they're on WhatsApp, where they know the person that they're chatting with very easily, that's a great choice. If they're choosing to chat on a different platform, you may want to take a look at it and really help them make sure that they're making the right choice. The second C, is to check in what they're doing. There's some parents that want to give their child a lot of privacy, and I think as you're acting as a set of training wheels, there's some value in that. But at the same time, making sure that they're doing the right thing and making sure that the chat's in the right direction. It doesn't hurt to engage with them. It gives you a great in. So if they're on Discord, for example, you could say, so what's going on in Discord? It helps you to connect with them. It helps them to understand that you're engaged with what they're interested in. So chat with them and just get to know what they're doing. It does help if you take on some of their interests, and I'm not saying that you need to start like a family Discord chat or something like that, but if you are modeling with them and if you're showing what appropriate online behavior is, then that helps them to become, it helps them to interact a little bit different. So we have some statistics. One of the biggest things here is that this fear of missing out is a big thing, not only for tweens and teens. I think adults don't want to miss out either. And this is how in the scroll of Instagram is addicting. And I think that there's quite a few people that get onto social media and they just don't want to miss a thing. So it does, it did, when I go back to the relationship that you have with media and what your child has with media, and making sure that it is a positive, creative relationship, that you're doing some consumption, but the consumption is to the point where you're not letting the technology use you. A lot of these platforms are built to continually get your engagement. Thank you, Zoe. They really want to make sure that you are on the platform. This is how these companies are making money, and they want to make sure that you're totally hooked in and don't want to miss a thing. So we want to make sure that you are choosing to use media and it's not using you. So we had our 3 C's. We got some M's for you now. It's not M&M, but we got M and M and M. We want you to model, make sure that you're setting a great standard for your child, to make sure that they can look at what you're doing. If you're reading your phone at dinner time, but you're asking your child not to have their phone out, maybe that needs to change first with you. If you have your laptop in bed watching a show, it's showing them that that's probably the right thing to do. So monitoring, this is where you're using some limits. A lot of times, what we're seeing both in Common Sense Media and the healthychildren.org is that they're suggesting that you give a time that media gets cut off, perhaps 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock. You would be in a conversation with your child to make the right decision for the day. If it's a different time on a school night versus a weekend evening, that makes sense. But you're going to have to make the agreements, not the rules, but the agreements between you and your child that makes the most sense for your family. And then mediate is just be ready to step in. A lot of times, as much as we think that they're grown up, even in 8th grade, they're still children, and they will come to you for advice. They might go to their friends first, and they might go to other people first, but they might come to you as well. And you should be prepared to help them to make a good decision. And, supporting them in making that decision first is an important thing. So continuing on. So when I mentioned before, like an agreement, this is again from Common Sense Media, but it's a conversation starter. So this particular family media agreement on the WGO, we will make sure that this gets sent out. But it's a conversation starter, and it would be, in a sense, kind of an agreement between you and your child about how they're going to use media. And this template is something I've used with my family, only with my 2 children. We have it posted next to their bed, right next to the wall, so they see it. And it's easy to refer to the document. A lot of times parents, they don't want to continually use this appeal to authority because I'm the boss sort of thing. If it's you're directing, hey, we made this agreement and you're appealing to this third point, which is the media agreement, there's some buy-in from your child, is that they went through, they had a conversation with you and they realize that maybe they are beyond the terms of that agreement. So if you make an agreement that says that if they feel uncomfortable, they're going to let you know, you would hope that they would come to you to let you know, and they know that you're a resource then to help them make that decision. If there's an agreement that they don't use tech before 7 a.m., maybe that's if they're up at 6:30 or 4:30 in the morning doing tech, that maybe that's something that you can just, well, that might be more beyond the agreement, but it gives you some leverage as you speak with your child and as you come to some agreements. So we have a whole host of questions that you might want to discuss as a family. A lot of these are to help you engage with your child and to start to take on some of their interests. If they're into Minecraft, maybe jump on Minecraft with them for a while. I'm the worst Minecraft player ever, I've been told multiple times. But it's cool to get some direction, and you can ask some relevant questions to them. When you take a little bit of interest in what they do, it goes a long way. If you're finding yourself sucked in consuming mindlessly, you know that feeling when you look up and it's 45 minutes later. You can understand then and empathize with your child if they get onto Instagram and they are out an hour. You can empathize with them and help to possibly redirect them. And so those are just some questions. If you can encourage your child to take on some hobbies outside of technology, it's not necessarily a bad thing. If they are taking on some tech hobbies, which, I'm a fan of, if it's something more creative, like if they're making a vlog or if they're doing some podcasting or if they're creating and building and using technology to, spread and build their knowledge, I think that's a great use instead of scrolling or whatever else they're doing. Well, so, and Danya, I can keep going if you want. I don't want to talk the whole time unless you want.
Keep going, no problem.
I'll keep going. Okay. So some ideas that you might have, and I've got them listed up here, but really I want to encourage that first one. If you can commit to learning about one media thing that your children are doing, in our house it's Minecraft, and I've learned a lot about Minecraft. I hope nobody's quizzing me about Minecraft because I'll probably get it wrong, but I've learned enough to kind of get through. We have like a Chromecast at our house, and we have an iPad, and we take turns picking different YouTube videos to watch. And my elementary age kid, it's cat videos. With our middle school age kid, I've said Minecraft a dozen times, but that's what we're watching. And it's interesting when they get to show their things that they're passionate about with you. We've got a couple of other things on there. So one thing I already mentioned was that device-free dinner. If you consider doing that, maybe start with once a week, or maybe you make an agreement as a family that you want to do it. On the weekends, there's no devices at the table. I think it's a great time for you to connect as a family. Another consideration is doing a book club. It's kind of old school, but it gives you an opportunity to engage with something. Picking one book a month and making sure it's an appropriate level. It's a great opportunity to have a shared experience with your child. We do have the link on here to the family media agreement, just referring back to that on the URL at the bottom. I think, Danya, if you could help with getting that into the chat, that's something that you'd be able to access. This will be on the WGO as well, just so that you can start that conversation with your child and possibly print this resource and post it so that they realize that you have this agreement. And really a lot of it's around making sure that they understand that they have privacy, but also there needs to be some transparency. When they're having chats, asking every once in a while, what they're chatting about is a great way to hear how they're, developing these skills around that. And really, you've got this. Parenting is a very difficult job, and it's not gonna. You'll come through with some scars and some blemishes, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. We all have stories of how our parents raised us up, and all of us are successful adults, and that's really what we want for our children and our students, is for them to become the best version of themselves. So you got this. Make sure that you're keeping a relationship with your kid, making sure that they are using the tool for good. So that's what we have is for a presentation. I would invite you, if you have any questions about what we've talked about, Donnie and I can answer. If it's something about what we're doing at the school, certainly Molly can answer. I almost caught that question. So the question in the chat is, shouldn't the school periodically have lectures or interactive talks with middle school students about the use of technology in their lives and how they can be a responsible citizen?
I can take a piece of that one, Derek. Absolutely. That is definitely a responsibility of the school, especially for our middle school students. At the beginning of the year in advisory, we all sign our responsible use agreement about how we will and will not interact with technology at school and also in our lives. And that conversation happens in advisory, and the children, sign the document, and it's referred back to periodically, most specifically when someone has participated in behavior that goes against those expectations and those values. Responsible media use, like healthy risk taking, healthy relationships, online chatting, all of those sorts of things are all units in our middle school health curriculum that our advisors are also leading. And so developmentally, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, those are units that are spiraling through the health curriculum. I'll let Derek answer that from our kind of curricular perspective through designer and any other areas that we're kind of attacking that question from.
Sure thing. And one of the things is that we as a school really value the resources that Common Sense Media have. And part of our strategic plan is to work towards being recognized as a Common Sense Media school. Through this recognition, it shows that we've implemented a lot of those key aspects that were highlighted in this presentation throughout our school. So this is something, it's about a 9-month kind of building of evidence that we are meeting these stipulations. And I'm hoping that here in the coming fall that we will have been awarded that recognition, showing that we are taking initiatives to really support our learners in a variety of different ways. So yeah, it's exciting times, and it's certainly important in the school is taking that half of it. And certainly one of the reasons that we wanted to have this conversation now is to engage you as parents, and it's as a school parent partnership, it takes a village to really raise a child up, and we want to make sure that we're engaging with you to make sure that the conversations that we're having at school are carried on through into the evening. And so our hope is that we've kind of established some ideas on how we can do that, and similar conversations are happening with our children or with your children.
Thanks, Derek. If we didn't answer that fully, just let us know, and we're happy to go back and provide any more information, okay? Derek, there's another question in the chat about Google searches. I'm happy to kind of take on the responsive piece of that, but if you want to take off the preventative piece of that, go for it.
Sure thing. So within our school network, we certainly are making sure that the content that's delivered to your child is school appropriate. So we have a number of filtering and firewall softwares to make sure that we're doing our best to safeguard your children while at school. That being said, it's I think difficult would be generous, but it's nearly impossible to completely prevent exposure. We do work with a number of different schools around the world to ensure that our list of sites is updated, and through an automated process, we're continually adding those sites that we find to not be reputable or otherwise negative in the sense that it's not going to provide your student with an opportunity to engage with content appropriately.
Yeah, thanks, Derek. Thanks, Amanda, for that question. I know that this is something that a experience that we've had in grade 6 and kind of setting up our grade 6s for a little bit more independence with bring their own devices and just the responsibilities of, you know, sending your 10, 11-year-old to school each day with their own laptop and all of that comes with that. We are, as a 6th grade team, talking just about this. So we have set some expectations, some hopes for when we ask children to go and do research. What does that look like? What should the scaffolded skills be? What context do they need? And we're planning. We've built in some flex advisory days into the calendar as we kind of start doing some long-term planning for winter break, because we knew that things were going to bubble up that we needed to be responsive to. And so all the grade level teams in the middle school have been meeting this week to say, like, what are the most important things that maybe we touched on the beginning of the year, but like we need to go back to, or what do the kids need? And this, Amanda, is a big piece of the grade 6 flex advisory planning right now, just making sure that we're setting students up for success to do research on their own, to, you know, use a critical framework for knowing how to look for a source and how to know that a source is viable and valuable. And that conversation is happening on the grade 16, 17, and 18 right now. Now more than ever, research skills are absolutely imperative. How do we know that we can trust what we're looking at? Really good questions. Any other things that are bubbling up, or hopes, wishes for the school on this topic? Things that we can address or be more proactive with?
You know, I wanted to point out that we're all in the same boat. And I know Derek and I, as he had mentioned, both have middle schoolers. Him and I both have kids in elementary, and I have a high schooler. So we often also exchange funny stories or challenges that might come across. So it's always good to talk to someone, you know, maybe another adult if, you know, you are in a sticky situation. And we're always available as well to listen and to help, because again, we're all in this together. We're all in the same boat. The struggle is real, and you know your kids best for sure, but just know that you're not alone.
Thanks,
And-
Danya.
And I just to go on a little further for what Danya has said is that a lot of times, like, your child might come to you and say, well, you know, somebody's parent lets them stay up till 11 o'clock playing video games. You know, it might just take a text message to that parent and just kind of get some alignment there. And when I was just in Abu Dhabi, and I texted, it was the person that's in charge of finance for Shell Oil, and he's like, yeah, that's not happening or whatever. So it's really interesting when you actually form that relationship with another parent, and you know, it helps them and it helps you. So, you know, if you, I know in elementary school it's easy to have a play date, and knowing some parents in the middle school, maybe that fades a little bit as they become more independent. But if you reach out to them, it's real interesting to hear when that gets shut down. So.
Absolutely. That big all or nothing thinking. I often have middle schoolers that will come in and say, well, everyone is doing this. It's everybody. And I'll say, okay, let's 3 names. Well, it's one person doing it. And so Derek's point is just totally spot on, that the more that we can like scale that perspective and help name that and just reach out and partner with each other, the better it is for all. Derek, Danya, any parents, any closing thoughts?
I think the key part of this is that we are a community and we want what's best for not only our own child, but everybody around us. So I encourage you, just like what we said in that last comment, is make it as much of a community as you can. It's not a community without the children. It's not a community without the educators. It's not a community without you as parents. So anything you can do to help each other, it's a great thing. I go back and I think that parenting is a difficult task, and if you can get help, that's the best way to go about it.
Okay. Thanks, Eric and Danya. I will just say from my purview, we anticipated some bumps as we transitioned back into on-campus learning. And one of the bumps I think we anticipated as a middle school staff, just kind of preparing in August, was the students not adhering to or not wanting to adhere to kind of the boundaries that we have for technology at school. So when we're on campus, students aren't using their phones or aren't using their computers unless a teacher asks them to. And we were all like, oh man, like we have told them for the last year and a half, like use your computers. This is how we learn. This is how we connect. Like it was the only way they were connecting with their teachers. Are we going to have this big hill to climb? And just huge kudos to your kids. We have not. That has like those boundaries, that down screen time has not been an issue. And so I just want to, go back to Derek's point that those tech-free zones are so important and actually really valued by the kids. The playground's a little crazy, but we don't have a computer issue. So that, you win some, you lose some. What we have noticed though is that there are, some habits that have developed in online chat rooms. There is, some groupthink that we're working through around norms of communicating with friends in person and norms of communicating with friends online, and that those norms don't always speak to each other. So we've been holding lots of circles around, would you say that to somebody's face? Would you have that conversation in a classroom? Would you have that conversation if your parents could hear that? Oh yeah, no. It's like, okay, guys, like the rule, like where the rules that apply to this communication also need to apply to this communication. And so just, I just want to give permission to you all to continue to have those conversations. It really, I think, surprises the kids sometimes when I come in and say, talk to me about what's happening on Discord. And they're like, how do you know? So just, really taking that little moment to just engage goes such a long way. And if there's any specific questions that you have, concerns that you have, patterns that you're noticing that you just don't know the best access point, please reach out. Myself, the tech team, and Ms. Martinez are here to help you. With that, we'll wrap it up. Thanks so much for all being here. I will send the slide deck out with all of the resources referenced tonight, as well as this recording in the WGO tomorrow. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great rest of your evening. Thanks, Derek and Danya.